In a move that no one saw coming, the Chargers are trading star wide receiver Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears for only a 4th-round pick, and it's going to be very hard for someone to tell me that this is a good move.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer. We've been covering the Chargers for 8 seasons together, and this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers for checking in on us on this late night emergency podcast edition. And to make sure you never miss gigantic trade episodes like this, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. I'm gutted. I don't have all of the words. We're going to try to do our best and vent with you guys today and talk it out together, but I did not see this move coming. The Chargers trading Keenan Allen for a 4th-round pick. I get it. Cap hit, the age. But David, this is a brutal move. I mean, this is a dude who is a Chargers lifer, a dude who is about to go for several, franchise records, and most importantly, an elite receiver still playing like a top 10, last year at times top 5 receiver in the NFL. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around this. The Chargers already kind of made the cap work in other ways. He reportedly, according to Ian Rappaport, refused a pay cut, but man, it's going to be hard for me to stomach this one for a while.
It's utter disbelief for me. I didn't even consider this as any kind of realistic possibility. I mean, after the season he just put up, 1,243 yards, 108 catches, 7 touchdowns, his 6th 1,000-plus receiving yard season. I mean, he's producing at an elite level. I don't understand this. You can't make this move make sense to me. You already restructured the other 2 contracts to make the space. Why are you messing with Keenan Allen's contract at all? Why are we doing this? It's really upsetting. I'm mad. I am sad. I'm disappointed that Keenan Allen's not going to retire a Charger like he absolutely should. And it makes me sick. I mean, he should have spent his entire career as a Charger. It's the right thing. It's the thing that should have happened. Far too often in sports, we don't get what we want, and things don't happen the way they should. And this is just another horrifically terrible and painful example.
Yeah, it's a sad day to be a Chargers fan, right? Like Keenan Allen, I get it. You have multiple Hall of Famers, Charlie Joyner and Lance Allworth. Like, Keenan Allen is arguably the best Chargers receiver of all time and is still playing that way, right? Yes. And I think the other thing is just explain to me how this is good for Justin Herbert, your best player. I don't, how can you? Right, you're getting a 4th round.
Who has that
kind
of rapport with him on the team?
No one does. But the thing is he has an injury history. Obviously, I think he really kind of made that go away as far as the injury-prone moniker by playing 5 straight seasons of at least 15 games, right, and putting up 1,000-yard seasons back to back to back, setting the franchise record with 108 catches last year, even when he only played 13 games. 13 games of Keenan Allen is worth more than almost any receiver in the league's 17 games. So it's just, to me, I don't get it from the standpoint of, okay, if you needed to clear space, if you had to get under the cap before the new league year and things had to happen, sure. I mean, Keenan Allen, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, I get it. The last one of those guys I would have moved on from is Keenan Allen. I would have much rather the Chargers extended Keenan Allen. It doesn't make sense to me. Even if you wanted to do it, you could have done it earlier in free agency. You would have had more money to spend. Who are you going to spend that extra cap space on now? The thing is, I get that it's a new regime. I get they're trying to revamp this team, but to me, how are you better in 2024? Because you said you wanted to stay competitive. We're going to talk about Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and them taking pay cuts, and it sucks that Keenan Allen didn't take a pay cut. Sure, he shouldn't have had to. He lived up to his contract, and he was still
produced.
At such a high level. 1,305 yards behind Antonio Gates for the most receiving yards in franchise history, 41 catches behind Gates. He could have passed potentially both of those this year. He definitely would have gotten him in the, receptions department for sure. Keenan Allen doesn't have seasons where he has less than 41 catches. And to me, David, it's just how does this make you better in 2024? Because right now there's a Keenan Allen size hole that, Malik Neighbors isn't fixing this. Right? There's no Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't fixing this, right? You don't have Mike Williams. You don't have Keenan Allen. You just released or shipped off Justin Herbert's top 2 weapons. How does that help you in 2024?
Well, yeah, and the guy that you took in the first round last year did not produce anywhere close to the level of the expectation of that draft pick. Quentin Johnston, unfortunately, just didn't get that rapport, and now he's going to really have to shine. He's going to have to take that jump, that next leap. I mean, it's a lot to ask. I mean, there's a lot that has to be replaced there. I mean, Keenan Allen is a guy that was so reliable. I mean, a guy that was so available on third down. It was automatic first down. He was wide open. It just didn't matter. He was uncoverable. That type of relationship, that connection, it can't be replaced. I mean, it's just something that has to be, renewed with new players. And I just don't know right now, looking at this roster, where that's going to come from. I mean, Josh Palmer has looked good in spurts, but you look at this wide receiver room, it's Josh Palmer, it's Quentin Johnston, and it's Darius Davis. That's it. And it just, to me, seems like there's a lot of work to do there. And yeah, I understand it's going to be a new, different type of offense, but how could you sit here and tell me that Keenan Allen wouldn't be a huge asset to have for your quarterback in any offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think Keenan Allen helps basically any offense. Like one of the top third and fourth down receivers in the NFL for the last, 8 seasons, right? Maybe even longer, like the last 10 seasons, the last decade. There's been nobody better at when you need a third down conversion, when you need a fourth down conversion. Everyone knows it's going to Keenan Allen, and he still finds a way to get open, beating double teams. And just look at last year. Like the Chargers don't have an offense last year if it's not for Keenan Allen. With Mike Williams going down in week 3 the way that he did, the way that Keenan Allen, especially even in that game against the Vikings, right? Over 200 receiving yards, throws a 49-yard touchdown pass. Like this dude did everything. He deserved better. He should have retired as a Charger. And I just look at this now and it's like, okay, I'm struggling to see the vision. I'm going to, this is in a lot of ways Tom Telesco's fault. Like the Chargers did everything, but they got put in this position by Tom Telesco, and the hard decisions had to come because of what they did last year to go all in and not ripping the Band-Aid off before. They put us in this situation. I'm going to give this new regime time to, let it play out. And I'm wait and see. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, right? At the same time, though, right now, Justin Herbert's weapons are this. His starting weapons are Gus Edwards at running back, Hayden Hurst at tight end, Joshua Palmer, Quentin Johnston, and Darius Davis, who's more of a special teams player. Like, what is that offense? You know what I mean? Like, you have most of, all the same offensive line at this point. You still don't have a center. You still don't have an upgrade at right tackle. I don't see how this is a good offense as we see it right now, even with Justin Herbert pulling the strings. There's a lot of offseason to go. A lot of things can still happen. It's just not going to make sense to me, though, the timing of it, how this all went down. And just like, a fourth-round pick, like, that's not going to be as impactful this year or even probably going forward than just having Keenan Allen on this offense this year. Like, Keenan Allen on this offense in 2024 makes you feel like, okay, hey, you can add a wide receiver in the draft, and you could be right there. You could have a pretty good offense. Like, a lot of those pieces I talked about individually, I like the depth they're adding. I like the offense they're building. But it was all centered around you already had a blue chip A1 tier 1 elite wide receiver for the rest of those guys to go around. Now it's just a collection of parts, David, and it's just like, thinking back on all of the good times we had with Keenan Allen, like one of my favorite players, you put all that stuff aside, the logic doesn't make sense to me. Like, and if it made sense to me, if it was a king's ransom or any of those things, I could be like, you know what? It sucks. I love him. I get it, though. You had to take it. This is not an offer you can't refuse. Like, this is a drop in the bucket. And to me, I just would have rather had Keenan Allen for one more season, even if they wanted to let him walk after that.
Yeah, this was not a Godfather offer. This was a fourth-round pick. To me, is disrespectful. I don't care how you look at it. He was still producing at a high level, and I've said it many, many times. His game, the way he plays the game, it ages very gracefully. He understands how to get open. His release packages are second to none. His route running is Picasso. Everything that he does to get open, it still works, and it's still going to work for a couple more seasons. So it doesn't make any sense to me. A fourth-round pick is not enough. I could have been maybe felt a little bit better about it with a third-round pick, but a fourth-round pick to me it doesn't feel like
even a third-round
is
pick,
adequate enough to make me feel better about the production that they are replacing. And now, Daniel, it feels like they have to take a receiver at 5. They have to get a difference maker at 5. And we said this all along. We don't want them to have to be pigeon-toed to have to take a position. Well, they are at this point in time.
Yeah, it feels like, they almost can't even trade out of 5. Like, if you trade out of 5 and then lose out on Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze, where do you go from there? I know it's a really good wide receiver class, but now you need a wide receiver 1, and you need a dude who's going to produce in a hurry, or this offense looks like it could be a mess in 2024. Shout out to Keenan Allen. You're a real one of the greatest receivers in Chargers history, hands down, maybe the GOAT. To me, he's the GOAT, one of my favorite players of all time. Went through so much bad to potentially get, a real chance, a real head coach, a real GM. Like, he doesn't get any of those things. He had to slog through all the bad years, and he doesn't get to be there for the reward, and that part is crushing. But let's change gears a little bit, switch gears a little bit, right? The Chargers did make some more moves. There are a couple of new free agents we're going to talk about at the end of the show. And the Chargers did get a couple of pay cuts from Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. So at least there's some hope with these moves that the defense might be able to turn things around a little bit more quickly with Jesse Minter and these pieces. So we're going to talk about how that all played out and how Joey Bosa stayed with this team, but somehow Keenan Allen didn't, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First thing to tell you guys about Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with the 3% match. This offer is only good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim is Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date from the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial, LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. David, as we kind of sit here in the fallout of this Keenan Allen news, it sucks because it kind of leapfrogs what we thought was good news, because we did find out on Thursday that the Chargers are finding a way to keep Joey Bosa. And, no matter what your feelings are about Joey Bosa as the person, as the player, we've heard Jesse Minter talk about him, right? Like, the Chargers defense is better with a healthy, Joey Bosa. And now I think with some other factors revolving around it, you can hope for a better season from him. But David, it's a surprise because it didn't feel like the Chargers could keep both. Like, obviously, if you would have told me Keenan Allen's going to get traded, I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, then you could probably keep Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. But, like, the hard thing is that felt like these were the moves you would make to keep Keenan Allen on the team. So it is still big, especially for the defensive side, the Chargers being able to keep Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack because they were selfless enough to take pay cuts to stay with the team and stay for this new Jim Harbaugh era.
Yeah, I had absolutely no idea that this was going to happen. Clearly, if you watched yesterday's show, I basically straight up said he is going to get traded. Well, guess what? I was wrong, and it was not the first time, and it will not be the last time, and I will always be man enough to admit when I am wrong. But hey, it happened. Joey Bosa did take a pay cut. He restructured his contract, according to Tom Pelissero, after playing just 14 games over the past 2 seasons. Joey Bosa also took a pay cut from $22 million to $15 million, but got his salary fully guaranteed and can earn back $4 million through sack incentives. So I like that. I think definitely when you look at Joey Bosa at $15 million, that is a lot more stomachable for me. And hey, when Joey's on the field, I think we all know he is one of the more complete edge rushers in the league. He's fantastic against the run. He is a great pass rusher. He's very elite in that respect. So giving him that incentives, that goal to say, hey, if you hit certain thresholds, then, hey, we'll give you some of that money back. So I do feel like this is a selfless move from Joey. Just considering the fact that he only played 14 games in the last 2 seasons, I think part of him said, okay, I think this is the right thing to do for the team. And, hey, you get to run it back with Khalil Mack.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. I think obviously he must have been sold on what Jim Harbaugh and this new regime are bringing to the table, what Jesse Minter is bringing to the table for him to want to come back and not, refuse it. And the funny thing is literally on yesterday's show, we're talking about people bashing Joey Bosa for not taking a pay cut. And obviously we know what would have happened if he didn't take the pay cut because Keenan Allen refused to do it and he's gone now. So I think it's just as far as what this team wants to be, right? Because what Jim Harbaugh teams are known for are being physical teams, offensively that can run the ball and having great defenses. As much as he's a quarterback and an offensive kind of guy, his teams are known for running the football and having great defenses. At least this gives me a little bit more hope that they can turn things around. Obviously, there are a lot of different holes they have defensively, but you can unequivocally say now that one of the holes they don't have, right, or is the edge rusher position. Now you're feeling very good about who you have at edge rusher because you don't only have those 2 stars, but you also have Tui Tuipulotu, who's a rising star as well. So it is exciting thinking about being able to see Jesse Minter and how he's going to deploy these guys. I know Daniel Popper said from True Media there was 44 times those guys were on the field at the same time rushing the quarterback, those 3 players. They got a sack 10 of those times. So like that's ridiculous. An insane percentage to be, coming home with a sack. Khalil Mack also took a pay cut. He took about, a little over $4 million in pay cut to stick with the team as well. It'd be interesting to see kind of what the final numbers look like there. But this is what Jeremy Fowler says. Important for the Chargers, not only do they save $11.25 million in cash with the 2 moves, the 2 restructures from their edge rushers, they saved them around $24 million in cap space too. So the Chargers have cap space. We'll see what they can do with it. But I do think another kind of underrated part of this move with Joey Bosa and him coming back, and reason to have hope in Joey Bosa, is the Ben Herbert effect, right? I think the Chargers are showing you that they're putting a lot of faith in what Ben Herbert can do with Joey Bosa, the ability for him to hopefully help him keep him on the field, right? Obviously, new training facilities, new training staff, director of sports performance, all of those things. But Ben Herbert is going to be the big, the biggest chance the Chargers have of seeing that old version of Joey Bosa come back. And I think when you have someone like Ben, you feel like it's possible.
I mean, we've talked about Ben Herbert and how much of a secret weapon he absolutely is. I mean, he's like a transformative type of guy. He's that type of coach. He gets that type of results. I mean, he's got 18 guys from Michigan that were at the combine. That's not by any mistake.
Yeah.
That's because of the work that he put in with those players and the time that he took to develop them and really go over every single aspect of wellness to get the peak performance. If they get peak performance out of Joey Bosa, that'll be something we have never seen before. That would be something that the league has not seen before. And I think we've always said that Joey Bosa has not shown us his full potential. Yeah. And I want to see it. I mean, I just want to see it. If he's able to stay healthy for 15 games with Khalil Mack on the other side, I promise you those numbers will be close to the top of the league. I mean, that's how impactful those guys are when they're able to stay on the field. I mean, not to mention getting that NASCAR package in with and getting Thule involved as well. He showed some great things as a rookie. He showed that he's tough enough to stand up against the run. That is a very fearsome trio of pass rushers, and Jesse Minter definitely has some great weapons to be able to deploy that defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a stretch to say the Chargers could have the best pass rush in the NFL next year. I mean, they borderline had it, with Thule and Khalil Mack by themselves without Joey Bosa, right? I do think there's also some credit to, the Chargers for getting a little creative with this. With Khalil Mack, one of the things was, part of his restructure is the Chargers can't franchise tag him next year. Part of the thing for Joey Bosa is he gets an extra big roster bonus next year, and the Chargers could still get out of it if they decide to release him before that, right? It's not much of a penalty. He was already under contract through next year anyways. The Chargers would have eaten $22 million in salary cap and dead cap this year and only saved $14 million had they traded Joey Bosa. So it was always going to be hard financially to trade him and get the most out of it. The Chargers got a little bit creative there, and I think they, deserve some credit for that. It just would have been a lot better if you were using that creativity to keep someone like Keenan Allen on the team. And I think the other thing about this is it's impossible not to accept the risk that comes along with this, right? Like, we can sit here and say, hey, it's great to get Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa back. Like, Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa felt more stomachable because at least you had Tui Tuipulotu already, right?
Yeah.
There's no Tui Tuipulotu sitting behind Keenan Allen in the wide receiver room, right? There's no one of that caliber. True. No one you can have and ask to step up and fill that kind of role. And we're talking about a player in Joey Bosa that's missed 20 games over the last 2 seasons. He's only hit double-digit sacks once in the past 4 years. That's something that's, makes it a little bit harder to get excited about. Like I said, the Ben Herbert effect is real. Hopefully we see a different outcome. But this feels riskier than keeping Keenan Allen around. I'll tell you that. And I'm like, it's all, fairy tales and unicorns and things like that if it all works out. But like, this could turn ugly, and this decision could turn ugly very quickly, especially, if Keenan Allen's out there doing what Keenan Allen does pretty much every season. Like, it's hard to wrap your brain around
catching 100 passes from Caleb Williams. Yeah.
Why you would go through all of this, why you would kind of perform these cap gymnastics if it wasn't to get, a player like Keenan Allen or keep him around. And let's let some time go, right? Like I told you before the show, hey, if they trade for Justin Jefferson, it feels a little bit different, right? I'm not saying they're going to do that, but
right.
We have to let it play out to a certain extent. But I would have been fine and understood it, and it would have made logical sense for the Chargers to move on from either Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa or Mike Williams.
A lot more logical sense, yeah.
It doesn't make logical sense to me to get rid of Keenan Allen, to trade Keenan Allen. So I get it, I get it. It's a new regime and you have to let it play out, but it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. The one guy I wanted to see stay the most gets traded for a 4th-round pick. And these two guys, even though it's huge, it's great for the Chargers defense in 2024. What about the Chargers offense in 2024? Because that has huge question marks, even though they do now have at least a capable receiving tight end in Hayden Hurst, who they brought in free agency. It looks like a tight end by committee type of approach with this group, and also added some serious girth, some serious beef to their defensive line with Poona Ford. So trying to end things on a, brighter note here, because the Chargers did make a couple additions I'm excited to talk about. We're going to get into that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $250 or $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. That means literally once this big tournament starts, you could bet on a 1 seed to be a 16 seed. It could be a giant favorite like that. If you win, you get those $200. And I'll tell you guys one thing. I'd be going straight to FanDuel right now and going to who the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft is going to be. And if it's not Malik Neighbors, it's not Rome Odunze, it's not Marvin Harrison Jr., it's one of those 3. So I would hammer that right now if I was going on FanDuel and processing my emotions like that. So if you guys want to get on the action, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, David, let's try to bring up the spirits here a little bit. The Chargers did make a couple of free agent additions. I know that, everything kind of pales in comparison to the Keenan Allen news right now. But
yeah.
Jim Harbaugh's still a winner. Jim Harbaugh's done things that haven't been liked wherever he's gone, right? There's a reason he has the reputation that he has. But one way or another, he keeps on winning. So it's been fascinating to see how he tries to build this team. It'll be even more fascinating now that he has some more cap space, because even with Keenan Allen, the Chargers were going to have more holes than they knew what to do with going into this season. Keenan Allen doesn't fix all those things. It opens up a crater of another hole that you have to figure out.
Yeah.
But now they have a lot of space, and it'll be interesting to see how they attack the rest of free agency. Before we get into that, though, make sure you guys are checking out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel, giving you the local experts, giving you the local coverage that you can only get from Locked On. But let's talk about Hayden Hurst, David, because the news came out that Hayden Hurst was going to the Chargers with the intent of signing. I don't think it's actually been made official yet, but he posted eyeballs when, talking about it and seeing it and quote tweeting it. And this one's kind of hard to, know how much you like it. I think knowing that you have Will Dissly kind of helps in this, because this is not a dude as much for blocking, but it is a guy that has experience with Greg Roman in 2018, 2019. The Chargers are filling up that tight end room, which is looking a lot like it has a lot less holes than it did to start free agency.
Yeah. Chargers GM Joe Ortiz, I'm sure, was part of the decision of drafting Hayden Hurst in the first round for the Baltimore Ravens.
Probably not a great decision, by the way.
yeah, definitely. It doesn't look too great when you look at the stats, but Hayden Hurst has had a couple of 50-catch seasons with 2 different teams, the Atlanta Falcons and the Cincinnati Bengals. So not a lot of high reception, receiving yard totals. 571 and 6 touchdowns is his best year. That's in 2020 with the Falcons. So this is a guy definitely much more known as a receiving tight end. The blocking grades are not pretty. Do yourself a favor and do not look at those. You're not going to be very happy about that. But Will Dissly's are very, very good. So that will make things feel a lot better in that respect. But Hayden Hurst is a receiving tight end. So your tight end room now looks like Hayden Hurst. And now you got Donald Parham Jr. and you got Will Dissly. So almost a completely new room.
Yeah, and a more well-balanced room, right? I mean, Will Dissly, in theory, fills the run blocking need, and Hayden Hurst is more of the receiving option.
Yeah.
He does come with a little bit of a higher injury risk. He's only played in 9 games last season. He's missed at least 4 games in 3 straight seasons. So this is a flyer, right? You're taking kind of a low risk, high reward potential with this because, I mean, they're not going to pay him very much. But yeah, his best season, 2021, 56 catches, 571 yards, 10.2 average. 6 touchdowns. He can be a solid receiving option, right? I don't think he's as good of a receiving option as Gerald Everett, but I think the combination of those two guys gives you a more complete tight end room. And even in the blocking department, last year, hanging out with Trey McKitty and Stone Smart at the very bottom, the worst graded run blocker by Pro Football Focus. But the years before that, at least he was competent. I mean, he ranked 48 out of 103 in 2022, 63 out of 106 with Greg Roman in 2021. So not as disastrous in most seasons, not hanging out with Trey McKitty and Stone Smart in most seasons. We'll see how it works out, but definitely more of a receiving threat, more of a well-rounded group we're seeing built by the Chargers' new regime in the tight end room. Let's talk about some girth, Dave. Let's talk about the Chargers' new addition on the defensive line, Poona Ford, someone that I was, first of all, let me just say, hey, Brock Bowers not necessarily off the table because of the Hayden Hurst move and, the Will Dissly move. Feels more off the table now because of the Keenan Allen move more than anything. Yeah. But let's talk about Poona Ford because he was added to the Chargers defensive line. I think on the surface, David, this isn't something that would excite a lot of people. I've been a big fan of him since his time in Seattle. I really like this move as a rotational defensive lineman that could be a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers lost 2 of their interior defensive linemen in this offseason, with Sebastian Joseph Day being gone and Austin Johnson being gone.
That one was in season, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, during this season.
They couldn't even wait till the end of the season for Sebastian.
Exactly. They had to make that move quickly, but they had to add a body to that room, and I think getting a guy that has a lot of experience and played in Seattle for 5 seasons before Buffalo. Last year wasn't really a great indication of who he was because he was inactive for about 7 games. He even said that it felt pretty weird and he didn't really understand.
As a healthy scratch, too. That's an important part of that.
Yeah, as a healthy scratch, which he just didn't really understand why he wasn't on the field. He does have several different seasons where he has multiple sacks, so he's a pretty decent interior pass rusher, but he's a big guy. He's 5'11", 310 pounds, so he is definitely bringing some size to that defensive line room.
And I needed that girth, honestly, to give me a smile on a really, really tough night to be a Chargers fan. But yeah, I mean, this is a space eater. Listen to the dimensions on this man. We're talking 5'11", 310 pounds. Like, this is a guy that's going to clog up some lanes in the running game. He was a really, really good run defender during his time in Seattle. And I think you don't want to let last year and a new defense bring you down too much on him because in the 3 seasons before going to Buffalo, he had 83 pressures and had at least 3 sacks in each of those seasons, according to Pro Football Focus, who doesn't register half sacks, right? He was the cause of them. He gets credit for all 3 in each of those 3 seasons. So as a rotational guy that can bring you a little bit of push in the pocket, brings you a little bit of juice, brings you a dude who can clog the lanes in the running game in an extremely shallow defensive line room, I really like this. I mean, I think another one where it's like, hey, is this a big signing? No, but like when you see what the other defensive tackles are out there getting paid right now,
big money.
You're talking about Christian Wilkins getting $27.5 million from the Raiders, which I like Christian Wilkins as a player, but my God, what are we doing with these? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like every couple of years you see certain positions. This year it's guard and defensive tackle that are just getting paid through the nose. So like, I like Poona Ford. I think the next thing is just kind of what happens with Morgan Fox, right? Like now. Yeah. You're not nearly as pressed up against the cap, and I think, with Poona Ford, with Morgan Fox, with the edge rushers you have on the outside, like it'll be interesting to see how the run defense works out, but I think you feel pretty good about at least getting some pass rush from the interior if you have Fox and Poona Ford.
Yeah, you do. I think you probably need to add another body that's more suited for the run defense. But I think you definitely have some interior pass rush now to go along with the edge rushers on the outside. So you can really put a package together that can get after the quarterback.
Yeah, this is a dude who can handle double teams, right? Like I watched a little bit, like, hey, he's a very hard guy to move, right? Especially in his time in Seattle. Like this could be a bargain for them, could fill exactly what they need. Jesse Minter signing off on it. The only kind of, connection that he has with the team is Sanjay Lal, who is the Seahawks wide receiver coach for a few years. But besides that, there's not much. So
yeah.
They obviously saw what they liked. I would expect more additions to this room. I would also expect with Keenan Allen, now gone, like, hey, probably time to go sign a premier corner. Like, it feels like that's one of the least that you could do now that you have some money. So I want to see how they finish. I want to see the whole picture before I make any, grand statements that I haven't already made. I've been telling them it was a terrible move. But like, I'm not giving up on this regime. I'm not giving up on Jim Harbaugh, but it's just logically not. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me for the Chargers to make this move. A sad day to be a Chargers fan, and I think the Chargers offense is going to be worse for it in 2024, but we'll see how it plays out because the Chargers know exactly what they did, and I think they did Keenan Allen dirty in a little bit, and that they're going to have a really, really good season to make it feel like this was worth it, because right now it does not feel anywhere near that.
It hurts.
Thank you guys for staying up with us on this, late night edition of the Locked On Chargers podcast. And make sure you never miss big shows like this. Go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports, David Drogmeyer, Dro Talk SD, and the show's page at Locked On LAC. To everyone who hit us up for fan mail, we got all your questions. I'm sure there's a lot more now, and we will use them for the next fan mail show that we get into. We will be back with you guys on Monday, or if anything happens over the weekend, make sure you guys are following to get our latest reactions on everything. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But this is a sad day. To me, this is a bad move. I wish Keenan Allen was still around, but I'm willing to see how it plays out. But this has become a very, very important season where one of the biggest reasons you could say that you wanted to win now just went to Chicago for a 4th-round pick. So make sure you guys are back with us on Monday for the next edition because it is your team every day. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.